Okay, so we're going to start the presentation. So today we're going to talk about how to secure your visa during COVID-19. I'm going to keep admitting people while we do this. My name is Tony Xu. My Chinese name is Tom. I am the co-founder and CEO of Domingo PBC. We are a platform that supports international students and other immigrants in the US. I'm also an attorney at Shulaw Group, member of the American Bar Association, Immigration Lawyers Association, and member of the New York Bar. The reason I wanted to do this is because of my personal journey. I had been in F1 student visa for about 8 years before finally adjusting status to a green card. And that was a very tough journey. I had a lot of episodes where I was anxious and felt like I wasn't supported. And I wished at the time that I had an immigration attorney that was there to support me. So today I'm going to talk to you about a few different visa types and how COVID-19 is impacting your visa during this time. Full disclosure, I cannot give you legal advice, and the information that I give you here is not legal advice. If you have any questions afterwards, I will be happy to assist you. Okay. So today's agenda, first we're going to talk about the 60-day immigration proclamation issued by Trump. We're going to talk about the strategies for F1 students, OPT students, and H1 workers, and maybe if we have time, other visa types. And we're going to have a live Q&A session. Okay, first of all, sorry to continue to admit this. First of all, this Trump's 60-day proclamation. On April 23rd, 2020, Trump has issued a 60-day proclamation banning new entry to the US. So the reason why the 60-day proclamation was issued was probably political theater. What the proclamation said was temporarily for 60 days, entry of immigrants who present risk to the US labor market is not allowed. And who does it apply to? Who does the proclamation apply to? It applies to people who are outside of the US, don't have a valid visa, and don't have a travel document. There has been widespread panic about this proclamation. People were worried that they would apply to them. F1 students or H1B students, H1B workers were worried that this would apply to them. It does not, because it only applies to people who don't already have a valid visa as of April 23rd and are outside of the US. And there are a number of exemptions for this rule. LPR, legal permanent residents, aka green card holders, are exempt from this. Additionally, physicians, nurses, and other healthcare professionals performing medical research intended to combat COVID-19 and their spouse and children are also exempt from this. EB5 investors are exempt. If you are super wealthy and are able to invest close to $1 million in the US economy, then you are exempt. There's also other exceptions. I don't think the people listening here fall into these categories. US Armed Forces, Afghanistan, Iraqi translators, probably not. And the final category of people exempt from this are people who are in the national interest of the US. And this standard is very subjective. The politicians at the top in charge of this are the people who can have a say in who is in the national interest. And it's a really tough standard to fall into. There is, again, myth about who this proclamation applies to. It does not apply to anybody who already has a valid visa as of the effective date, which is April 23rd. So if you already have HBFJM visa, then you are not affected by this. If you want to go abroad and come back, according to the current rule, you can go abroad. And as long as you have your valid visa, you can come back. However, there is a nuance in this rule, which is hidden in the text, and that it says within 30 days, before May 23rd, the Secretary of Labor and Homeland Security, in consultation with Secretary of State, could recommend appropriate measures concerning the visas that will occur in an interagency review, with possible recommendation that the categories are deemed to be negatively affect U.S. economy. What this means is that by May 23rd, we could receive another proclamation, an amended proclamation by the administration that additional rules are being enforced at this time. And that could affect F1 student visa holders and H-1B worker visa holders. So it remains to be seen what will happen, and let's keep close watch by May 23rd. And again, what this all means, if you have a valid visa or travel document as of the state, you may enter. And what this all means is likely political theater. Trump does not like immigrants, as we all know. And the 60-day proclamation is likely a testing ground for what he's going to do in May. It is not a blanket denial of visa or green card. And the truth is, as long as you have a valid visa, you can still adjust your status, apply for green card or citizenship inside of the US. Another news is that the USCIS is still processing visa applications inside of the US, and it is also processing green card applications if you're adjusting to green card status inside the US. And they will reopen their office. It is scheduled to reopen their office on June 4th. So if you have an interview that's being canceled, then expect that you will receive a notice from the USCIS that it's rearranged. Okay, so now we're going into different types of visas and how to strategize in the special time to keep your visa secure. First, we have F1 student. F1 student, we all know what it is. It is a type of visa issued by the US government for people to study in the US. The earliest you can enter the US is 30 days before your program start date. And you may stay here for as long as your program is valid. So for the duration, DS is a term of art that appears on your I-94 document. It stands for duration of status. Usually it's typically 4 years for undergrad. And after you graduate, if you choose to adjust your status to another visa, say H-1B, then you have additional time to adjust to status. But if you don't have an adjustment of status lined up for you, then you have 60 days grace period to get out of the country. And during the 60-day grace period, you can figure out additional ways to adjust status, but this is your last call, the 60 days. How to maintain status in general. When you're an F1 student, there are a number of rules that apply to you. First of all, you must maintain full-time student status. For undergrad, you must typically take 12 credits. For graduate students, you must typically take 9 credits. There are some exceptions, and this might become relevant if you're an F1 student right now in any school. It's possible to apply for a reduced course load if you have either recommendations by a psychiatrist or a doctor saying that you cannot complete your normal course load during this time. And there has been a number of incidents of students affected by COVID-19 that are under tremendous amount of stress. And it is possible for you to go talk to your DSO, your designated school official at your university, to recommend a reduced course load so that you don't have to pay a semester's full of tuition and not violate your status. However, there is a limit to how much you can do this, and the maximum amount of time you can do this is 12 months. Another important thing to keep in mind is that you must keep your passport valid. Generally, the rule is that you must keep your passport valid for more than 6 months. especially if you want to re-enter the United States. So if your passport is about to expire in 6 months, make sure that you go to a consulate in your city or in your area to renew it. You must also keep your I-20 updated and accurate at all times. This means that if you want to change major, you must update your I-20. If you don't update it, then and you leave the country, then there is a risk that you can't come back. Also, you must keep your address updated. The timeline there is within 10 days of moving. And now the dreaded topic of work. As an F1 student, you're generally prohibited to work unless you have the approval by the school. You can work on campus only, but in order to work off campus, you have to apply what's called CPT or OPT. And we'll talk more about that later. So during COVID-19, there are a number of special situations that arose, and I have here 3 scenarios where F1 student could get in trouble, and we'll go through them one by one. Scenario 1, your school doesn't offer online learning, you're in the US, and your school has canceled all the classes. In this situation, talk to your school's DSO and make sure that they know that you are still in the US and that you're still trying to maintain status. But typically in this situation, you don't, other than notifying your DSO, you don't have to do anything. If your school doesn't offer online learning, you're stuck and it's not your fault, but you don't violate status. The second scenario, your school offers online learning and you are in the US. If your school offers online learning and then you can take online courses, you must take online courses to maintain valid status in the US. There's a situation where the online courses aren't not your major classes or aren't relevant to you, and the classes you need to take aren't offered online. In that case, also talk to your school DSO and make sure that both you and the DSO understand the current situation. The third situation, which is more severe, is if you leave the US and your school offers online learning. This is a very confusing topic because if you leave the US, normally you can only be outside of the US for 5 months. And that is the 5-month rule. If you are on F1 and then you leave the US for 5 months, then you're violating your status and you need to get a new visa. However, during the COVID-19, SCVP, which is the government body regulating foreign students, have published temporary notice that you may remain active status even if you're overseas, as long as you enroll in online learning. What about the conflict of online course and the current situation? So to clarify that, first we need to understand a little background. Before COVID-19, when you're an F1 student, you're maximally allowed 1 online course to every semester to maintain your F1 student. It's either 1 online course or 3 credit limit. But during the COVID-19 crisis, you can take more than 1 online course and that will be okay. But this is only temporary during the COVID-19 crisis. What happens if you fell out of status during COVID-19? Again, as I said before, there is a 5 months rule. Either you're away from class or you are not in status, say you failed a class. Because of stress or some exigent circumstances, what do? In this situation, you can talk to your DSO. Because COVID-19 is a special circumstance, it's more likely that you will be allowed to reinstate your status. Now there is a timeline for doing this. You must do this within the 5 months after you violated your status. So for example, what does this mean? You failed your class and you're no longer enrolling in 12 credits like you're supposed to. So immediately your unlawful presence might start to accrue. And what you need to do is talk to your DSO and file for reinstatement before the 5 months run out. But if you don't know about this, there might still be a way to save yourself from the situation. In that situation, then you should talk to an attorney to help you with this. During COVID-19, you may travel. It is not advised that you travel because, well, there is a pandemic out there. However, if you decide that you must travel, say that you have someone sick at home and you must attend their deathbed or some really bad situation like that, then you can travel. And what you need to do is to have your valid I-20 visa and travel signature ready with you. If you have already graduated and are using your 60-day grace period, then it is not recommended that you travel because you just simply might not be allowed back. Here, let's look at a situation. A person is in isolation during COVID-19, is very stressful, and wants to go back to his home country. Can he? The general answer is you have to look at if your visa will still be valid when you come back. If that's the case, then you can come back. Here is a little bit of nuance here. Your F1 visa is different from your I-94 visa status. Your F1 status is the duration of your program. That's the entire 4-year or 2 years of master's program that you're allowed here. However, your F1 visa might be shorter than that. It might be just 1 year. It is the visa stamp on your passport. So in the case where the visa stamp runs before your duration of status runs out, then you typically need to go to a consulate to get a new visa stamp. And before COVID-19, a lot of people utilize consulates in Mexico and Canada because once their F1 visa runs out, Mexico and Canada has this special rule where if you go there for under 30 days, you can still enter the US border with an invalid expired visa. And so a lot of students would go to Mexico and Canada, and then at the consulates, they would get a new visa and come back. However, right now, Canada and Mexico's borders are temporarily closed for anything other than essential activities. So this is no longer a viable option. I would strongly advise you not to go out if you don't have a valid visa. The next, OPT. OPT, as we all know, is a program that allows F1 students to extend their stay after they graduate. And you're typically allowed 12 months total of OPT time. And during this 12 months, you can work. And you can work either part-time or full-time, although it is recommended that you work more than 20 hours on OPT. OPT has a difference between pre-graduation OPT and post-graduation OPT. Typical scenario is a student would graduate and utilize post-graduation OPT. A little glitch. Typically, a student would utilize post-graduation OPT. However, if you must work, if you, like, say you run out of money and you want to make some money, you can apply for pre-graduation OPT. However, if you apply for pre-graduation OPT, the total number of months of OPT yours allotted in total is still 12 months. If you, for example, worked 3 months before you graduate, then after you graduate, you have 12 minus 3 of 9 months total time left on OPT.
Sorry for jumping in. I think you might need to reshare your screen.
Okay. Reshare my screen. Okay, thank you for reminding me. Can you see it now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. All right, to continue what we had before, if you're a STEM major, then you may extend OPT for another 24 months. So you would have a total of 36 months of OPT after you graduate. And this is a very sweet deal. I, for example, did not take advantage of this because when I was an undergrad, I didn't plan my immigration very well. In retrospect, I should have chosen a STEM major, and then I could have had 36 months of OPT, giving me multiple chances at entering the H-1B lottery, but oh well. The timeline for applying for OPT, this is an example. Say that you are graduating in spring 2020 and your program completion date is May 20th of 2020. The earliest time you can apply for OPT is 90 days before your graduation. And that is, in this case, February 2020. That's a lot of 20s. And the last day you can apply for OPT is July 19th of 2020. That's 60 days after you graduate. And the program completion date might vary from school to school. So make sure that you talk to your school's DSO to figure out what this completion date is. So it is not now it's not too late to apply for OPT now. The typical graduated class this year would need to apply by July. And what we're going to see is a lot of students are going to panic during May, June, and July because, well, OPT this year is crazy. You're going to have a fewer selection of employers to choose from who are going to be both worried about COVID and keeping their own workforce. So if you run into issues, let me know and we can talk about it. There's another issue. There's another thing that worth mentioning is that if you're a doctor student, a PhD student, then this timeline may not necessarily apply to you because you can customize your program completion date to be something like, to take into consideration your dissertation. So in that case, also talk to an attorney or your DSO so you have maximum chance. How to maintain status on OPT. Okay, there is this dreaded 90-day unemployment rule. It should be unemployment. It says employment here. It should be unemployment. You are allowed a total of 90 days unemployment on OPT. If you are unemployed for more than 90 days, then you're out of status and you must leave the country. So this is going to be what stresses most students this year, because if you can't find a internship or job and you're unemployed for more than 90 days, then you're out of status. However, we're going to talk about strategies to get you out of there very quickly. On OPT, you must find a job that's related to your major, and you must document your employment to be more than 20 hours every week, and you must report to your school's international students office what you're doing. Let them know what you're doing. Okay, so new changes for during COVID-19. There is currently no instruction from the government that says what happens if, because of COVID-19, you can't find an employment. We haven't heard anything from the leadership yet. However, we have heard that if you work for under 20 hours during COVID-19, then that's okay. But you need to let your school's DSO know. Here is this slide is blending into the strategies of how to cope with COVID-19 potential unemployment situation. Your acceptable employment under OPT normally is at least 20 hours per week. You can accept unpaid work. So you can work for anybody.
It's OPT.
For free, and basically give them free internship. However, there are state laws and federal laws that govern labor and employment. And this is a very tricky issue for you, because if you are getting unpaid work, then your right is not being protected under labor law. Typically, you are entitled compensation. And there is a 7-factor test used by the government and courts to determine if you have been unfairly withheld compensation from your employer. However, if you're in a desperate situation, then it's probably better to get unpaid work rather than not having work at all. So this is a very tricky situation. Be sure that you're not taken advantage of by any employer, but at the same time, also take care of your immigration status. It is a slightly different story if you're on STEM OPT. On STEM OPT, you must be paid. There is no exception. And in addition to being paid, your employer must be enrolled in the government's E-Verify system. And there are additional rules. Talk to an attorney, talk to me afterwards. You have to have a training plan, and your school has to approve this training plan. It has to know basically exactly what you're doing to keep track of you. Also on OPT, you may work for more than one employer, but all of your jobs must be related to your major. You cannot go work for a restaurant if you majored in rocket science. And you may work gigs if you're an artist or a musician, but you have to carefully document these gigs. You can work for concerts and stuff. And you may also work for staffing agencies. Staffing agency like headhunting firms or HR firms, you can work for them, no problem. There is also allowance for self-employment. However, you must show your correct business licenses, and you have to document the legal documents necessary to show that you were self-employed during this time. So it's best to consult an attorney if you want to go this route. And I'm seeing an increasing number of people going this route because, well, they cannot find jobs, so they will get themselves jobs. As also, last point is you can work as an independent contractor, freelancer. Again, you must document your contracts. And this is all for the future case of USCIS coming to audit you and then ask you tough questions. You want to give them evidence that you work for more than 20 hours. Although during this time, as I said, under 20 hours is okay, only during the COVID-19 crisis. Okay, so let's look at some scenarios. What if you're laid off during OPT? What if your employer says, we can't even keep our own American workers floating, we're just gonna lay you off? First of all, talk to your DSO. In this situation, your DSO might have strategies to help you cope with the situation. And if your DSO is running out of ideas, talk to your attorney. And again, here comes the strategy that we talked about before. You can find volunteer work. It's not really hard to find volunteer work. And all you need to do is to convince your employer that they're not at risk for hiring you on OPT. I've personally had this experience happen to me. My employer at the time had no idea what OPT was. I had to write them a long letter explaining, you're not at risk, and here are the ABC things you need to do in order to legally hire me. And if you are not able to do that with your employer, definitely talk to an attorney. Attorney should be able to draft a letter really quick to talk to your employer and then get you on the payroll or just on their HR as soon as possible. If that is not an issue, if your volunteering is not an option, then you can always do freelance work and go the self-employment route. It is now too late to file for regular H-1B because regular H-1B, you have to have filed for the lottery by March 20th of this year. However, it is not too late to go with the cap-exempt H-1B. What does this mean? Cap-exempt H-1Bs are H-1Bs that are given to higher educations in certain government research groups. These employers, you might not know, they don't have to enter the lottery. They have a limited number of slots. Then you can just apply basically throughout the year. And if you're running out of OPT and then you're thinking ahead, you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do next year? And you can definitely apply for higher education jobs and get a cap-exempt H-1B. What you can also do is you can enroll into another program, preferably a higher level program. What does that mean? If you're a bachelor's student, you should enroll in a master's or a PhD program. You can enroll in a bachelor's program. However, do remember that enrollment in the same level of program, so another bachelor's degree, or if you're a master's, another master's degree, is typically frowned upon by the government. How is that going to come back to bite you? When in the future you apply for H-1B, you might receive an RFE or you might receive a denial. And when you explain yourself, USCIS might consider your previous additional enrollment in the same level program as playing with the system. So they really do not like enrolling in a same level program. Another thing you could do is day one CPT programs. Again, the USCIS really does not like this. you might be able to find these day one CPT programs. Typically, they are a for-profit university. I think, like, for example, New Jersey Institute of Technology or something like that, where you can apply for a program, and on day one, you are allowed CPT and you can work. However, this is very risky. If you're desperate, you might go this route, but do remember that this is very risky and might come back to bite you. Okay, now we're talking about H-1B. H-1B started in 1990. That is the first time H-1B had happened. It's a temporary visa that allowed specialty workers to work in the US. What does specialty worker mean? It means that you must have some specialty skills, either you're an engineer or a lawyer or nurse or doctors, that your skill typically requires a bachelor's degree, bachelor's training or equivalent. And every year, we all know this, there is a huge lottery. 65,000 allotted to bachelor's degree, 20,000 slots for a master's, and this year there are about 275,000 applied because of the new rule. The registration system had made it extremely cheap to apply for H-1B. So we have seen unprecedented number of H-1B applicants this year. However, sadly, a lot of them were rescinded. A lot of the employers refused to then petition for the H-1B because of COVID. And we will talk about how to deal with that in a minute. Also under H-1B, H-1B is typically good for 3 years, and then you can extend it once to a maximum of 6 years. Typically after the 6th year, you have to wait 1 year before you become eligible for H-1B again. So a lot of, in some cases, a person after 6 years of H-1B, if they weren't fortunate enough to file for a green card, then they must leave the country for a year and then come back again for H-1B again. Also, the last nuance is, like, your employer that sponsors you for H-1B must prove that hiring you, a foreign worker, does not harm an American worker. To me, I think this is a very unfair practice, and it is not good for the economy. However, that is not how the politicians think in this country. So what the practice usually is that your employer have to file as LCA, a labor certificate, with the Department of Labor, and they have to put their existing workers on notice that they're hiring a foreigner. This is, again, very xenophobic. Who wants to notice their existing workers, hey, I'm hiring a foreigner? That's just outdated, archaic practice, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Okay, so H-1B rules. What can you do on H-1B and what can you not do? You must work for the employer who petitioned for you. Unlike OPT, you cannot work for multiple employers. You are also not allowed to work on side jobs. And there are special cases where if you found yourself work for side jobs and you are in violation of your status, like, there are 180 days of allowed unlawful presence. But I do not recommend that you go out of your status. Do make sure that you talk to an attorney if you find yourself accidentally working for somebody else. But there might be ways to save you, but you do need to consult an attorney. On H-1B, you must be paid prevailing wage. This is, again, another way for the government to make sure that you don't steal any American jobs. So there is a website where you can go to find out the prevailing wage of your profession. Like, for example, lawyer in Manhattan, level 1 lawyer, junior lawyer in Manhattan, how much must you be paid? I think it's like $32 per hour for level 1 lawyer in Manhattan. And this is, again, the rationale behind this is if you're paid significantly lower than an American worker, then American workers might be out of a job. So they impose this rule. But this also offers you some sort of protection, right? Because you are now paid at least the prevailing wage of the area that you're in. Another perk that you get with H-1B is that you can travel outside of the country, and you can also recapture your travel time. What does this mean? If you are on H-1B and you want to travel, say, 4 months vacation outside of the US, then when you come back, you can apply for you can petition in front of the USCIS to recapture that time. Basically, any day that you spend abroad, you can then add, that does not count as the 3 years limit of your H-1B. You can then ask that back when you come back. And another thing is you may apply for transfer to a new employer. However, you must have worked for the first employer first for at least 1 day. So you cannot like game the system, basically. You cannot work for one employer and then immediately, without working for another one, transfer to a new employer. That is not allowed. Okay, so the next thing is COVID-19 complications for H-1B. COVID-19 has introduced this new situation where a lot of workers find themselves working from home, and working from home typically wouldn't be a problem if you are only doing that for under 30 days. Or if you're doing it for more than 30 days at home, then, and also your home is really close to your office location. And how that is determined is, again, another term of art issue. You should consult an attorney. So if you find yourself, unfortunately, not within those, let's say like a situation where you work from home for more than 30 days, also your home is really far away from your office, then your employers might need to file a new H-1B petition for you, and they might be found to violate H-1B laws if they don't do that. So if you're working from home for an extended period of time, make sure that you talk to an attorney even before you talk to an employer, because your employer, remember, don't know immigration laws, and they might be easily spooked about new changes to immigration laws. So talk to an attorney before you do anything else. Okay, we don't really have time to talk about any other types of visa. I want to talk about anxiety and how to cope with it during a very, very tough time. And I've personally been in this situation, again, for more than 8 years when I was when I was an F1 student trying to adjust status using OPT, using H-1B. I failed H-1B lotteries both times, and it had great employers both times who wanted to sponsor me for green card, but I just couldn't get myself over the lottery. There is nothing I can do in that situation. So it's easy to feel like you are defeated. It's easy to feel like nothing in the world is working for you. Like no matter how hard you try, things are just not working in your favor. And that is sometimes the case, and that is the case for a lot of you right now. So don't fall into that mindset. Don't fall into the defeatist mindset. There are still things you can do, and the best you can do right now is to find someone who has been in that situation before, or find someone who knows immigration law, who can brainstorm with you with what options you still have. And now there are people who will scam you. There are scam immigration lawyers that will just take your money. And make sure that you do your research. Go online and then search for this attorney, and find if they're a member of Immigration Lawyers Association or a bar association. Find their user reviews. Make sure that you don't get scammed. Another easy mindset to fall into is the eternal optimist. And this one I see a lot in other people. I didn't see this in me. I was very depressed, anxious all the time. But other people seem to be having this mindset, like, I have 60 days. I will find an employer, no problem. That you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not at least brainstorming your options when you're in this extremely bad situation. Do not be an eternal optimist. I've seen people who were like this and waiting for a magical angel from the sky to come save them. It just won't happen. Maybe it will happen, but you shouldn't rely on it. So again, my advice is to talk to somebody in your community. Our startup is called Amingo, and it is a very, very new startup. As you can see from today's webinar, I am struggling to even get this webinar started because we have not done this before. However, what our goal of starting this community is to have a support group, a support network for people basically in my old situation. And the way we do this is we have products that help you, guide you through filling out the forms that you might find yourself doing in your immigration journey. We also offer a support group. We have a Discord channel. We have a Facebook group. Feel free to reach out to us. We're still, again, a very early stage startup. We appreciate any participation to help us grow as a community. And if you have any questions, this is my number and my email. As we have overlapped interest. We're both programs that help international students studying the US, and I'm gonna leave it to Siam. Siam, are you there?
Yeah, hi. Hey, thanks a lot everyone for being patient with us. There has been a little bit of technical glitch, but looks like the Zoom is working pretty well. So every time I join Tony's webinar, I learn a lot about immigration myself. So these are super helpful. So yeah, we'll just jump into the Q&A. Before doing that, I'll just talk a little bit about came in US as an international student and basically went through a lot of struggle. That can be a whole conversation on its own. But I just wanted to add that, yes, no matter how much struggle you go through, eventually there are ways to get out of those. So we focus primarily on giving the students the technical skills which are required to stay in the US. Those of you guys who are international students, you know that for OPT, you have to land a job within the first 90 days. The job can be an intern job. It can be a volunteer, non-paid job, but you have to have some kind of job in order to keep your status legal. And I studied in electrical engineering. What I realized that after graduation, the market, US job market is very biased towards software skills. So no matter what kind of technical STEM degree you have, maybe it can be chemical engineering, biology, the jobs in software are at least 10 times more, sometimes 20 times more. For example, in electrical engineering, there are I think like 200,000 jobs right now. And for software, there are 4 million jobs. So we realized that there's this huge kind of like gap in the market. I think the screen kind of went off, the sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you mind sharing, or do you want to?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I can just I can also talk about that. So yeah, basically, thank you. Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, and within this time constraint, primarily we provide 4 types of support. One is that teach you on-demand software skill, like on-demand skill like coding. And then the second one is that not only like teaching skill, but also like giving you a real product development experience by making you work in a customer facing product. So that's the second one. What we have seen is that having a real skill really helps you transition from a non-computer science STEM degree to a software type job. And then obviously we help with making you job ready, like resume reviews, mock interviews, and job application support. And we also hire you, as you know that you can work as an OPT. So we also hire you as an OPT worker, so that when you are working in our project, you can also work in our company, and also that will give you some experience. So that's what we do. I do not want to lengthen it more than it needs to be. I think we can just jump into the Q&A. Yeah, and we have a batch starting on May, what is the date now? So we have a batch started just yesterday. You can also probably get into that batch, or else we have another batch starting June 1st week. So go to our website and feel free to apply. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Awesome. Okay, let's do.
I think there are a couple of question and answers, so there are a lot.
Yeah, let's go through them.
Okay. I think. Okay, should I, do you want me to ask the questions, Tony, or how do you want to do? I can read the questions for you if that's easier.
Oh yeah, please read the questions to me and also make me the host again. So
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So,
I can do that.
all right. So, yeah. So the first thing is that Husnedar Bamji. I hope I'm not butchering the name. So I'm currently on OPT and applying for STEM extension. Does the news about suspending H-1B OPT and STEM extension visa affect me even though I'm already in the US and working on OPT? That's the question.
The 60-day proclamation only applies to people who are outside of the US and don't have visa. So if you're already working in the US, it does not affect you and you have a valid visa. You're fine.
Okay, another person, Nafiz, asked that if the passport gets expired during the COVID-19 situation and you still haven't received the new passport because your country passport is not currently operational, what would be the next step?
So the question is, if your passport
gets expired during this time, and you still haven't received your new passport.
Right.
The office is not operational.
So, yes, I would. So if your passport is expired, I would not advise you to go abroad. And your country typically has a consulate or embassy in the US. It's possible to renew your visa while in the US. For example, my passport got expired once and I went to the embassy, the consulate of China in New York to renew my visa, and that was no issue. So make sure you don't leave the country, because once you leave the country, your passport expires, you cannot come back. However, renew your visa, renew your passport as soon as possible inside of the US in a consulate.
Okay. Yeah. The next question is about, it's interesting, it's about unemployment benefit. So this person, this is a long question. So right now this person is in OPT and he has a full-time job, but after the COVID-19, he lost his full-time job. Right now he's doing just a part-time job, which is 18 hours per week. And then that person is asking that, can he apply for unemployment benefits? Some of his friends applied for it and got it.
Okay.
So, yeah, and is it allowed to have the part-time? So there are two questions. One is that, is it allowed to have that part-time job? And yeah, like can he apply for this unemployment benefit?
Yeah, two-pronged question. First, can he apply for a part-time job? Yes, you can. There are special guidelines for COVID-19 period. Only you can work part-time under 20 hours, no problem. The second problem, can you apply for unemployment benefit? Yes, you can apply for unemployment benefit. There is a wrinkle here, which is the public charge rule recently published by the government. And this was last year. Yeah, this was last year. Public charge rule basically says that if you are an immigrant relying on US welfare benefits, then there is, you might have trouble adjusting to a green card in the future. However, during the COVID-19 crisis, the welfare and the unemployment benefit you apply does not, will temporarily be allowed. So definitely show that there is a relationship between your unemployment and the COVID-19 situation. Document that evidence. If you need help, talk to an attorney, and you can apply.
Awesome. Thank you. And Theodora asked, I think it was during the webinar, so what about volunteer departure or no flights going out of time? I don't know if this was probably during the webinar. Does it, like, do you understand the question?
Could you phrase it? Could you say it again? A volunteer departure?
Yeah. What about voluntary departure and no flights going out in time?
Oh, like if you're stuck here in the US?
I think that's what she's asking.
Okay, so if you're stuck here in the US, then if you're in F1 OPT status, then you should definitely talk to your school's DSO, explain the situation to them. The school's DSO, what they're gonna do is possibly allow an extension of your status. And that's called a I-539 form, and it is mostly within the school DSO's discretion to give you that extension, or if you run out of status, if you run out of status as a result of not being able to buy a plane ticket out of the country, and it has been more than 5 months, and you might be able to file with your DSO's assistance reinstatement of your student status. And here there are some additional strategies where you can help yourself, which is you can enroll in one credit class, like for example in your school, and to maintain your status and something like that. But you have options.
Okay. This person asked anonymously is that I have applied for passport renewal around 2 months ago, but have not received the passport yet. The current passport will expire in 1 month. My current OPT will expire in October, and OPT extension can be applied in July. What should be my approach if the passport renewal takes more time? Can I apply for the OPT extension even though the passport renewal takes much more time? Does it? Yeah. Yeah. Do you understand the question?
Yes. So the question is, can you apply for OPT extension even though your passport is about to expire? You don't need a valid. Well, you should definitely work with your DSO on this, but you can definitely get an OPT application or OPT extension application started without a valid passport. You just have to show. You have to give them a current passport, and to get the process started.
Okay. Okay. And then Mizan asked, does the 30-day limit also apply to CAP exempt H1B? I'm referring teaching jobs, classes going online.
Could you repeat the first part of the question? Does what also apply to it?
The 30-day limit also apply to CAP exempt H1B.
Hey, Kushbu.
Hi guys.
Hey.
If you're not asking questions, please mute yourself. Thank you.
Luckily, Zoom allows me to see who's talking, and I just
Okay.
okay. The 30-day rule, does it apply to CAP exempt H1B? There are a number of 30-day rules. I am not sure which one is are you talking about? There's a 30-day rules for, like, if you're working in H1B and then you want to adjust back to an F1, there's a 30-day rule, but I don't think that's what he's talking about.
Okay, so guys, whoever is asking question, feel free to ask again. And I mean, we'll definitely answer all your questions. So thanks a lot for being patient. I'll just, Elise just thanked you for addressing the anxiety issue. That's, yeah. And then Catherine asked, my provisional green card expires this year and I need to reapply. Are there any issues with the process due to COVID? Since I already held the 2-year green card, do I need a lawyer to reapply, or is it something I can do myself?
Oh, provisional green card. So if you have a conditional green card, then you probably did it via marriage, right? And then you already have a 2-year green card. Or maybe in some cases, investment green card is a 2-year green card. But yes, it's better to talk to an attorney. And the reason why I say this is because your situation is unknown to me right now. Sometimes, for example, you have a conditional green card, but you are divorced. And in this case, most people would say, oh, I'm not eligible for a permanent green card anymore, but you are. You just have to show that your marriage was bona fide and it was real. There could be other situations where you have nuances in your case that might affect your application. If you think your case is perfect, then you can probably apply for yourself, but you might make some mistakes. In this case, it's generally a good idea to talk to a lawyer.
Okay. So this person also asked anonymously, is that applied for renewal of EAD on February 15th. With the receipt, I am eligible to work for 3 extra months without EAD card.
Okay, yes.
And then basically end of May, the 3 months will be over. Due to this pandemic, I did not receive EAD yet. And right now that person is asylee, granted asylum status.
Okay.
I was told that I do not need the EAD, but the companies are right now asking for the EAD card. So what should he do?
Okay, that's a multifaceted question. First of all, you have the EAD, which is a work authorization document based on asylum. On asylum, you are granted the ability to automatically renew your, extend your EAD by 180 days. However, you must apply for an extension of your EAD within this 180 days period. So I understand that you have filed in renewal and is not being approved. However, you've filed for renewal, and then you're okay right now. So that, I hope that answers your first question. You get automatic 180 days renewal, but you need to file renewal for the next period, but you did that. And the second question is, your employer is now asking for an EAD. I understand your employer is probably wanting to do their HR due diligence and compliance, because if they're working with someone that is an immigrant, they might not know the relevant laws. In that case, I would advise you to talk to an attorney and get the attorney on the phone with your HR, and the attorney can then explain the immigration laws, how you are eligible to work.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, like my OPT will start from May 20th, but I don't have any job on hand.
Okay.
What are my options to save my unemployment days, like this 90 days thing?
What are your options? Okay, so we briefly touched over this. So your OPT expires, let me just try to understand the problem. Is the May 20th the 90-day expiration date? Expired?
No, that's the OPT start date.
Oh, it's OPT start date, sorry, my bad. Okay, your OPT start May 20th. So given 90 days, you must have a job aligned by June, July, August 20th. So you have until August 20th, until you can just sit on your chair and do nothing. As soon as August 20th hits, then you're out of status. So how do you maintain status by then? You can find volunteer work. You can basically go to a startup or go to any employer and then say, hey, I need a volunteer position. I can be unpaid intern, could you give me a job? You can work for under 20 hours. And make sure that you have a difficult conversation with the startup or a company that maybe you have to work ways around the labor laws to make sure that you're not violating any labor laws. But again, this should be relatively easy, because volunteer unpaid interns in the special circumstances are a way to save you. And there are other ways. You can go back to school. You can, if you're a bachelor student, again, enroll in a master's class, or alternatively, as I said before, you can talk to your DSO. You say, hey, my OPT started and I don't have a job lined up, and also I can't find any volunteer opportunities. Then your DSO might recommend that you enroll in a 1 credit course or something like that to extend temporarily your F1 status.
Yeah, thank you. And and if you basically need as Tony said, any kind of startup experience, feel free to apply to get me hired if you want to get into software. One person asked that if someone have a job offer from August, but joining is remote. So if someone joins remotely in the job in the beginning of August and then plan to travel outside US late August,
okay,
will there be any problem?
It depends on what this person's immigration status is. As I said before, if it was on H-1B, then your job, a remote job, might be difficult for you, because for H-1B, your employer has to file a labor certificate for you. And on the labor certificate, there is a physical location where you will be working. If you're working from home location is different from that, and not just different, but like with not within commute distance, or like not within the same metropolitan area, then you will need to file a new H-1B petition. However, this is very complex and you need to talk to a lawyer to look at your specific case. And if you are on OPT remote, then this shouldn't be a problem. And that is about the only other type of visa that we covered that allowed a job. So yeah, reach out to me if you have any specific questions, you want to explain your situations even more. I can give you a better answer.
Yeah, and this video will be available in YouTube, so feel free to like just subscribe Emingo's YouTube channel or Get Me Hired's YouTube channel, and you can see all your questions recorded. Thanks a lot for being patient, because I feel like I'm asking older questions. I'm just going sequentially. So this is a question by Marlos Borm. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right, but the question is, I am a green card holder by lottery and will expire September. So 2 months ago, I applied for renewal. Now I'm afraid for my renewal as I have Medicaid and I'm not making any money due to COVID. I lost all my income. So now worried about Trump's public charge rule. As I had Medicaid for the last 2 years, will that work against my renewal? I also didn't do taxes in US, so need to do that ASAP. Also wondering if I am allowed to apply for unemployment now due to COVID, or that is against a public charge. I'm a freelancer artist.
Yeah, okay. This is a very good question. Any unemployment benefit or Medicaid that is due to COVID, so for example, you lost your job because of COVID, you can make a convincing case that the public charge rule does not apply in this case, because the public charge rule is a very new legislation, right? And if you apply for a diversity visa, diversity green card before public charge rule went into place, it cannot retroactively apply to you. So it depends on when you apply for diversity green card, and it depends on your exact situation. Like you would need to talk to an attorney to explain how exactly the COVID situation affected your job, and how does that put you then on welfare. Then you'd be able to get a more tailored answer to in your situation. But in general, the general rule to follow is that if it's related to COVID, if it's caused by COVID, then there is a convincing case to be made that the welfare you receive should not count against you under the public charge rule.
I think Marlos is trying to speak, and she probably needs to be unmuted.
Oh yeah, let me unmute you.
Question?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I just want to answer quickly your question. I only did it 2 months ago, so it expires in September. I started as soon. It gives you 6 months advance to reapply. So basically the first day, I was like, let's go. I knew it was going to take extra time because of COVID, but I know the new Trump law went into effect February 24th, right, 2020. But I've had Medicaid for the last 2 years because I was always told prior that it was okay. I mean, I've been here for 10 years, and 8 years I didn't have any health insurance.
Right.
But then once they were like, at Planned Parenthood, like, you can apply for Medicaid. And as an artist, I was like, that's amazing. So, but now I'm in this renewal process, and I get mixed messages. I've spoken to so many people. Some people say, you cannot ask for unemployment. Some people say yes. Then they're like, you have to be, you can't have Medicaid anymore now. But I feel, especially with COVID, I'm really afraid to walk around uninsured.
Yeah.
So it's just a little, it's so complicated.
Yeah, it is very complicated.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you that extra information.
Yeah. So definitely talk to me in private about this, and I may help you, especially when you mentioned it's Planned Parenthood. There are certain provisions under Medicaid that are exempt from public charge rule.
Oh,
For example, like
okay.
things like abortion, things like getting a baby, and things like all that. It's you're entitled to that benefit. Public charge rule just does not apply to you if you fall into those special exceptions.
So I'll just email you tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you. So another question from PG. By the way, how long do you want to do it, Tony? Because there are way too many questions.
I will stay here until 9:30, 9:40.
Okay.
We started this so late, and
Yeah.
thank
Okay,
you
so
for keeping.
let's do it till 9:40, and those who have more questions, feel free to just email Tony. The email is given in the chat. And okay, so I'll go quickly then. So this is a question from PG. I was laid off while I was on H-1B. My last day of work was on March 27th.
Okay.
So the grace period ending is May 26th. I have got a new job with another employer last week, but they have not started my transfer yet.
Okay.
They will start sometimes this week. Do you think I have a chance to get the acknowledgement receipt on time, given the overall conditions? If not, what are my options? So
yes, so H-1B, like OPT, also has a grace period. I think it's 60 days as well. After you get laid off from H-1B, you have 60 days until you find a new solution. And within the 60 days, you can apply for transfer of the H-1B. And you make sure that your employer understand the severity of the situation that you're in. You're basically deportable after a period of time has passed and a new H-1B petition hasn't filed for you. You don't need to be enrolled in a lottery the second time you transfer your H-1B, so make sure that your employer knows this. Sometimes the employers, when they are ignorant about immigration law, will tend to lag behind schedule. So if you need an attorney to talk to them, sometimes an attorney's letter carries more weight than your own letter. So make sure that that is explored as well.
awesome.
Hi, Tony. I'm trying to talk. This is me, PG. I asked the question.
Okay.
So my question was mostly regarding, do I really have enough time on my hand? Because my grace period, as you said, the 60 days grace period ends on May 26th, and the application is not been still applied. So does the application just needs to be applied, or do I need to have an acknowledgement receipt before 26th? So what needs to happen before 26th? That's my question.
Yeah. So your grace period ends on May 26th. Okay, that gives you significant time to have basically like 13 days to have this done. Let's see, your employer has to file a new labor certificate, and that usually takes about a few weeks' time. And premium processing is basically suspended, right? Premium processing is usually what people utilize in your situation to make sure that your process is expedited. However, the US government has suspended premium processing. Yeah, it's very challenging. So talk to me afterwards.
Okay.
We'll explore details about it.
I've already sent you an email describing the situation.
Okay.
So if you can reply to me, we can discuss this further. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Well, we really the US. I just hear these questions. This is very stressful times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, thanks a lot, actually, Tony, for doing this. It seems like I have more questions, so I'll hold off. So another question: if someone wants to be an entrepreneur during the OPT period, what are the policy constraints regarding this?
Oh yeah, this I'll probably do another webinar because it's a whole thing by itself. If you're an OPT, as I said, you can work for yourself. You can be an entrepreneur. Make sure that you work in your area of study. If you're a rocket scientist wanting to open a restaurant, make sure that your restaurant is at least related to rocket science. And also, you make sure that you have the proper documents. Like you need a business license, and you need to document that. You need to give this document to your school's designated official. I know you're starting your own business, but you still have to report back to your school. You still have to talk to the official. Hey, I opened a business and this is my business name, and this is the address, and this is my work. You have to have some sort of income to show in the future, in case somebody audits you, that this is a real legitimate business. Basically, you cannot use it as a shell company. That is very, very risky. You have to actually have work.
And the next question is by Dinesh. I'm on H-1B and my I-94 is expiring on May 24th. I have filed an amendment plus extension in April with a client. Now I'm also filing another amendment with the same client, but with a higher wage level. But on bracket it's written, but no extension filed, as it's already filed with first petition. Should I file for an extension again for second amendment? Will both be considered independent when making a decision by USCIS? That's a question.
That is a very specific question, and I'm not sure I understand it completely. So.
Okay, we can go through. Dinesh, feel free to email Tony. I think that would be the best way to reach out.
I'm trying to see if I can find the question and read it, because
yeah.
Oh, Dinesh Ivana.
Yeah.
I'm also filing another amendment with the same client with a higher wage level. I see. So you got promoted, or like you were junior before, now you are senior, and you were trying to file an extension or amendment on your H-1B, but your I-94 is expiring. Should you file for an extension again for the second amendment? Yes, if there is material change in your job description, then you need to file a new petition. That is just to be safe. Like, you don't want to file for a petition or file for an amendment only to have the USCIS come back to haunt your ass about you not filing the correct document in the first place. So if you want, this question is phrased very succinctly, but also ambiguously. So you need to talk to me and I need to ask you some questions.
Okay, great. The next question, I think you're on the right list. Do you want to go for it, Tony? The next one. I was just right there.
It's really helpful when you read it to me. Please read it to me.
Sure. So the next one is by Wei. I hope I'm not messing your name. Okay. So it's, hi Tony, I am a F1 student, but it is expiring early June, but my I-20 is valid. I cannot return to China to renew the visa because of the travel ban. Would you recommend me to travel to Mexico to renew my visa? If I travel to Mexico, my visa would already have been expired by then. So. Yeah.
So typically in this situation, yes, my advice would be to get a Mexico visa or get a Canada visa and go to Mexico. There is a special automatic validation rule, which means that if your visa had expired but your I-94 is still valid, then if you travel to Mexico or Canada for under 30 days, then even though your visa expires, you can still come back. So what typically students do is that they travel to Mexico to get a travel stamp and then a new visa in front of the consulate, US consulate in Mexico, and then that's fine. However, right now, I would not recommend this because the Mexico border and the Canada border are temporarily shut down, and I don't know what's going on over there. Add me on WeChat. I will be able to answer your questions if you message me privately.
Awesome. The next question is by Glenn. My master's STEM OPT expires on 13th July. I am planning to apply for a fall semester which starts around mid-August. Will there be any complications due to the gap after my visa expires? So basically from July to August, I guess. That's the question.
Yes, around mid-August. Yes, there's usually a 30-day rule. However, let me double check if that applies to the OPT visa situation. I was in a similar situation as you. My OPT also expired, and I enrolled myself into another program in mid-August. And typically you're supposed to apply in January or February because schools take a while to process your application. So if you haven't applied yet in any school, you might have this complication. The schools is no longer accepting applications. However, there are some schools that allow what's called a direct application, which means that you're basically allowed to show on site and in person, and this person look at your document, look at your face, and then say, hey, you're okay, we admit you. And those are usually public schools or community schools. You might be able to do some research online to figure out what the options are, because COVID-19 might limit severely your options to show up in these direct admission schools. But yeah, talk to me in private, and I might be able to give you pointers what these schools are.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is by Marta Marek. I graduated in December 2019 from college. I applied for OPT in February, but I haven't received any answer from USCIS yet. However, I got accepted to a university in fall 2020. I am not sure if I still would wait for an application for a new I-20 from my new university. I do not want to leave the country before starting the new university. I got accepted, bachelor's. I think it's a similar question, probably like the previous one, right?
Okay, it's very similar situation. And again, yeah. So this is, first of all, you graduated a bachelor's degree and you're applying for another bachelor's degree. This situation is frowned upon by the USCIS. They typically view this as e-gaming in the system. However, if you can find a way to convincingly say, you know, the first bachelor's degree I studied, for example, was in philosophy, and the second one is in engineering. The first one was useless, won't get me a job. And I have come to the realization that my life paths is better when I choose an engineering degree, then you might be able to get yourself out of the situation. So that aside, you apply for OPT in February, but haven't received an answer, yes, because the backlog is really huge right now. You got accepted in a university. You are not sure if you still wait for an application for an I-20. So you don't apply for a new application. You don't apply for a new I-20. What you do is you apply for a transfer from your old school into transfer your SEVIS record into your new school. And for this to happen, you need to communicate with your DSO. I was able to do this when I transferred from one school to another with no problem. Okay, awesome. Your DSO is your friend. Yes.
Okay, awesome. The next question is by Vedant. I exhausted my H-1B attempts and my STEM OPT is about to end and planning for day one CPT. How much risky is it? What is the issue if I get H-1B picked next year and go for stamping? And like if I'm not able to travel to my home country, what can I do if I don't get day one CPT? I think the question wasn't fully clear, but do you understand?
Yes, so I understand because I've been through the same situation. Congratulations, you've also failed your H-1B and multiple attempts. I completely understand what you're going through right now. It's very stressful. Your STEM OPT is about to end and you're planning for day one CPT. I have colleagues that went through this exact situation. Yes, you may do this. It's the risk is when you apply for H-1B again after your CPT program ends or you apply for green card, my application might get denied or it might get checked. You might receive a request for more information, in which case you would have to write a letter and tell them, explain yourself. You have the burden of proof explaining that you weren't gaming the system. And that, but as long as what day one CPT gives you is that it gives you a chance to stay here and explain. If you don't apply for day one CPT, then you will be out of status and you won't even have a chance to explain yourself. What are the other options? You don't have to apply for a day one CPT. Can you apply for a master's program? Can you apply for a PhD program? Maybe that is the case. It's worth exploring. Yeah, those are your risks. And okay. Even I'm not able to travel to my home country. What can I do if not day one CPT? Yeah, I feel you, man. You're kind of stuck here.
Yeah, tough. I mean, Guys, whoever is not speaking, if you can mute yourself, I think that's that will help us. So another question anonymously is that I heard it, if someone is losing the H-1B status and cannot travel back to the home country, they must file for a change of status to B2. What could be the implications with that move? And can someone change it back to H-1B from B2 if someone gets a new job? That's the question.
Okay, so if you want to go from H-1B to another status and you have a gap in your status, for example, your H-1B expires on June 30th, and then your next visa, say F1, doesn't start until September, then you have like a 3 months gap, right? Is my math correct? And then in order to fill that gap, you need a gap visa. And typically what people do is they apply for like a business tourist visa, and that's B1, B2. You can do that, and if you don't do that, then you have an unexplainable amount of gap in your valid visa status. And again, how it's going to come back to bite you when you apply for another visa, then you might get rejected because you have this gap and you have to explain yourself.
Okay, I think we have like 2 more questions and we can wrap it up for today. So this one is also anonymous, is that I am currently an undergrad who won the lottery for H-1B. I currently found a different job, which I find is a better fit, but my start date is earlier than the start date of my H-1B. What do I do?
You must work for the H-1B job that sponsored you, at least one day. You must work for it before you can transfer.
Okay. And I think Wei is asking for your WeChat account, and Amit also like asked that what's your prediction on future OPT and H-1B?
Okay. But WeChat account, Wei, I will message it to you. Future H-1B OPT. So the administration really doesn't like us, and that's not a secret. And it's okay, because luckily this country is not a dictatorship. And there are people who are fighting on your behalf, like me and other immigration attorneys. So it is important to understand the legislative procedures in this country. It is not the be-all and end-all if a legislation is published, like a policy is published by the USCIS. Courts could still challenge it. And just recently, there was a major court victory for immigrants in the US that challenged a policy published by the USCIS. There are some judges who are still working in our favor. That being said, that is the background of my prediction. My actual prediction is that there are going to be new policies that are published by the Trump administration that severely limits OPT. The good news is that pretty much as soon as that rule is published, there will be people challenging it. There will be schools, there will be international students, rich universities, there will be other lawyers associations that will challenge this. And as soon as these policies are challenged, some district court judge might put an order to stay the policy. And as soon as that stay is in effect, then the policy is temporarily not going to be effective. Another way that the legislation could screw us is they could nominate some bills. Like there has been a bill by this Republican congressman in Arizona, I think, that tried to eradicate OPT. It's not going to pass. So if you hear doomsday sayers say OPT is getting canceled, make sure that you understand how law in this country works. For a proposal by a congressman to become a law, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of effort. So that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, we are kind of out of time, but there's one last question. Do you want to take it, Tony? Or
yeah, sure.
Okay, so this one is by Pavel. So my background is in industrial and systems engineering, but I'm looking for a job in data science. Will this be a problem while applying for OPT extension or H-1B application?
Yes, it will be a problem because you have to find a job in your area. You have to find a job that's in your major of study. You can find a job, if you find it, well, you have to be creative here, right? Because you can apply for a data science job. Data science is not a narrow field. Data science is very broad. You could definitely find a data science job working with industry or system engineer related work. Like maybe you can find a data scientist job working for a industrial design firm or something that gathers industrial engineering field intelligence. And that would be counted as related to your major.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it from everyone. I mean, thanks a lot for listening to us. And yeah, I mean, thanks a lot, Tony, for doing this.
Awesome. Sorry for the initial thing bump. I think I've recorded this. Oh, please. Did I? This? Okay, I recorded this. I will publish this on YouTube so people who weren't able to join the Zoom chat will be able to see this. Okay, thank you guys for joining.
Thank you for joining. We'll see you in the next events. Bye.
Bye.